is almost inconceivably large in comparison to Israel. Israel is, we have 10 million people in Israel. So India it's 2 orders of magnitude larger. And so there's a temptation, a completely reasonable temptation to say, well, look, you can't compare India and Israel because the size is so different. And that, brings people. I've already met many people here in India who say, look, there's so many different cultures, there's such great diversity, and how can we possibly create unity when the diversity is so great? Now look, this is there's a truth in this question, but there's also an illusion in this question, because this question of how can we possibly create a unity when there's so much diversity, this question, it's one of the questions that the liberals and Marxists use to destroy the idea of the unified nation. Is they say, oh, come on, India can't possibly become a nation because it has hundreds of languages and it has so many traditions. But I see this question differently, because when I go to America, the American left, they say the same thing. There's too much diversity. We can't possibly be a nation. And I go to Britain, which is a much smaller country. And in Britain, the left says the same thing. We have too much diversity in Britain. How can we be a nation? There's no possibility of unity. And even in Israel, we have 10 million people. And for 30 years, the professors and the academics and the left have been saying there's too much diversity in Israel. We can't really be a nation. We're too divided. Once you go from one democracy to another and you see the same question being asked, eventually it gets through your head that this question isn't because of how big America is, or how diverse it is, or how big India is, or how diverse it is. The question is because certain people want, for ideological reasons or just out of innocence, to believe that it can't be done. There's no future to unified India. There's no future to unified America. There's no future to unified Israel. So we have to give in and accept global world order. That's always the conclusion. We have to give in. And I say to you from my experience, there's a little truth in it, but mostly this question is false. If you work culturally to cultivate an understanding of the history, the unity of your nation, you will be able to unify the leadership of many, many different sectors, and you'll be able to be strong for a very, very long time going into the future. And if you give in to these twisted questions, it's too diverse, it's impossible. Really, they're just telling you, look, it's impossible to give up. And you must not give up. So I was going to respond to the question about India and Israel. I can be brief and very direct. Israel is a small country, a democratic nation like your own, a nation with challenges, in some cases very similar to your own, in some cases in many of the same opponents and rivals and enemies. And as you heard from the discussion tonight, we also share a strong affinity culturally, because we're both conservative democracies. We still value our tradition, our national and religious traditions, and we face a world in which the kind of nationalism that we have is being attacked and ridiculed and destroyed in many places. I don't know what the future of America and Europe is. America is in the worst place that it's been in terms of internal divisions and self-doubt. It's in the worst place that it's been in since the Civil War. It's in a terrible place. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know whether they'll overcome it or not. But for Israel, when we look around the world and we see, you know, if the West disintegrates, which it's working very hard to do, who could possibly be a true friend to Israel? Who? And I'll tell you, in Israel, everybody knows this, that our hope is for friendship with India. And you know, I feel that it's I'm a religious person. I believe these things, that God gives us opportunities. We have to take the opportunities. We have to make sure that we don't fail and ignore the opportunities. We have to take the opportunities. But what an incredible gift to have a nation like India, almost in the same neighborhood with us, with so much strength and power and tradition, and people who are so welcoming to us Jews. It's just fantastic. It's almost a dream.